Hello and welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. Each week I interview someone else from the trans or non-binary community and we share our stories. This week is a special week and one that I've been looking forward to basically since I started the show. Tonight we have Bailey Sargeant on. She is the wife of Victoria Maximus. So Bailey is cis and Victoria is the one who transitioned. I love having the perspective of a spouse on because usually as we transition, one of the hardest conversations we have, the one we fear the most usually, is the one with our spouse. So it's really important to get their perspective and talk about how they communicated, how they made through it, especially since they have such a great and wonderful relationship now. A little bit of background on Bailey. Bailey is an animal activist with a YouTube channel who loves hiking, yoga, video games, rescuing stray kittens. They've rescued 24 so far, and cuddling her own cats. Please, everyone, welcome to the show, Bailey.
Yay! Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's so great to have you. I think you heard the intro. I think this is a very important conversation. So I really appreciate you being willing to come on and do it, and also being willing to adhere to the dress code and wear the purple sweater tonight.
I know. We're twinsies now.
I was actually wondering when I was picking this, I'm like, am I too monochromatic with my show? Because that's like the whole background is pretty much these colors. And I'm like, no, I'm going with it. I feel it tonight. And apparently it was just out there in the cosmos because you're wearing it too. So getting into your story, Bailey, how long have you and Victoria been together?
We have been together for 10 years. We've known each other for 11, but we weren't together for about a year there. And then we started dating in 2010, and then we got married in 2012.
Okay.
So we just celebrated our 8-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So when did Victoria come out to you?
Victoria came out to me in the very end of 2017. Like, I think it was mid-November 2017. So she's been out officially with me for 3 years. And then we didn't come out to the public till May. Yeah, May.
So how far along were you in your relationship at that point?
So we had been, by the end of 2017, we'd been together for 7 years and we'd been married for 5.
So you guys already had a pretty good history then. You already had kind of an established relationship. How did she bring up the topic?
She, in 2016, had expressed a desire to wear dresses and to start wearing feminine clothes. And it was something I had a really difficult time with because she was claiming at that point that she was still male, but had just wanted to wear dresses, and that, women can wear pants. Why can't men wear dresses? Which we both still absolutely agree with. If people are there, if people are still, whatever gender they are and they want to wear dresses, that's totally fine. But she had been exploring that for about a year. So I was always questioning for that year, like, what if she's trans? What if she comes out? And then she started going to therapy for chronic tension headaches. So she was doing physical therapy and like emotional therapy, because stress and everything can really cause a lot of tension in the body. Yeah. And that's where she really felt like she could start exploring and being herself. And so that's when she, at the end of that year, like, I knew she was already kind of playing with the name Victoria and playing with, how do I feel about exploring being a woman. And so that's when I asked her in November of that year, like, kind of point blank, like, okay, I just need to know, like, are you trans or are you not? Like, where do you fall? And that's when she, like, fully came out and told me.
Wow, so that's really interesting that you were the one essentially to bring up the topic because you saw those signs. How was that year for you?
It was very hard because during that year, I still up until about a month before she came out, or maybe 2 months, for the majority of that year, I still believed that LGBTQ was sinful because that's what I had been taught my entire life, and I was raised in a very conservative church. And so I was able to say, like, men wearing dresses wasn't bad because, like I said, like, women wear pants, so, like, kind of it's a gray area, like in my mind at that point, you know?
Okay.
But then, so I had a really hard time with it, and I was really afraid she was going to come out as trans because I didn't know how I would handle it, and I thought it was a sin, and I was just like freaking out. And then one day, like, because I had just been having a really hard time with it, but then I'd been doing a lot of research on YouTube and on different, like, you know, people talking about the Bible and LGBTQ issues, like in a positive way, saying like it's not wrong, it's not sinful. And so then I was praying one day, and I literally asked God, like, take this away, because I think she's going to come out as trans, because she was like playing with it, or not playing with it, but like, you know, exploring like the name Victoria and stuff. And I asked God, like, please take it away, because I thought it was wrong.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't audibly hear God, but I just felt this really strong, what if this is exactly who I created her to be? Like, what if this is just who she is? And that really like hit me, and I was like, well, then if that's who she is, then that's who she is. Now the next question is, if that is who she is, do I stay?
Mm-hmm.
Like, then she came out, and I had a hard, you know, I cried, and it was still really hard, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I just decided the night she came out, it was like, are you going to leave? She asked. And I said, I don't know. I'm not going to leave right now. So I don't know. I just need like time to think and figure it out. But yeah, I didn't think it was wrong or sinful anymore, but I still felt like hurt, and like, you know, a lot of the expectations of what I thought our marriage was going to be felt like it fell through the cracks. And so
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So was that initial conversation pretty difficult? I mean, what was that a really emotionally fraught initial conversation when you confronted her that one
yeah,
time?
at the time, I this I mean, I'm definitely not a perfect person, and at the time I had a very hard time with it. And even though I decided it wasn't wrong, I still was like, but I don't want to go through a transition in my marriage. I don't want to get divorced. I don't want to, basically, like, I don't want to deal with all this, because it's just like it felt like too overwhelming and too much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I, at the time, not anymore, obviously, but at the time it was like, I wish she wasn't trans, because this is just difficult to transition, and to like for my life to be different like that. But that sounds terrible. I know that sounds like a really horrible thing, and I don't wish that anymore. But
No,
at the
yeah.
time, you know.
No, it's fine. It's something that we all go through. Like, you know, what if there was some way to fix me, or God, I wish I wasn't this way because of what, you know, about how it affects the people in my life. So yeah, that's it's not it's not unique to you. So don't feel bad about that. One of the things we talked about previously in our warm-up conversation was, I think one of the struggles that spouses, significant others have when this conversation begins is their brain immediately jumps to the end point where their spouse now is suddenly a female, and, you know, fully all of that. And I think that that's too much too quickly for people. How did you avoid that, or fight against that? How did you guys work through that?
That was something I had a really hard time with. And I even would tell Victoria, like, I'm just scared. And like, you know, like, basically, what if tomorrow you wake up and you have total female form, and your face is facial feminization, and you have like long hair, and you have a female voice? Like, it seemed like it was going to be a 180, and it was going to be too quick, and I wasn't going to be able to handle it. And she reminded me something very important, at least in our story, is that before she ever wore dresses, I never thought I'd be able to handle her wearing dresses. But then I got to the point where it was like, I'm fine. And it's like, and then during that time, I never thought I'd be able to handle her going by the name Victoria. And then she started going by the name Victoria. And it's like, you eventually, you take these steps that you think, I'm not going to be able to get up that step. But then you get up the step. It's like, you know, walking up the staircase one step at a time. You're not just going to go from like the lowest step to the top of the staircase, because that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and it's funny again how much going through this as a spouse parallels what we go through. You know, I couldn't even conceive of, you know, where I am now, let alone believe in that and like have hope for that when, back when I was just starting and kind of coming to terms with the fact that I was trans. Yeah, this all would have scared the crap out of me. And yeah, it's the same thing where it's just steps, and you get comfortable with each thing and then realize that the next thing is either not that big a deal or something that you want. Um,
Well, and I look back on it now and it was wrong, but it honestly did help me. So it's kind of hard. But I
mhm.
really requested that she went slow. Like, and I feel bad for doing that now because for somebody suffering with gender dysphoria, I don't know what it's like to suffer with gender dysphoria. And so for somebody to suffer with gender dysphoria to be told like, hey, I want to stay with you, but I need you to go slow for me
Mhm.
is very selfish. But she really did go slow, and it was helpful to me. But I feel like some of it might have been at the expense of her own dysphoria, you know.
I think
And
there's some truth to that, but I'm going to cut you some more slack here. I think that going through all of that with somebody supporting you slower than you would have liked or felt comfortable with is so much better and easier than going through it alone.
that's true.
One of the big fears that we have in being trans is, will someone ever love me? Will I ever find somebody that will love and accept me? So having you in her corner, I think, was so much more valuable than anything. So yeah, so that's another area where you can really definitely give yourself some slack, where staying with her was the really significant boost that you gave her. That was
Yeah.
that was much bigger than her being able to jump ahead. And possibly going back to what I was saying about my own transition, I think having that reason to kind of take it with measured steps, slowly and more methodically, thinking through everything, might actually help as well.
Thank you. That's really sweet of you to say. I really hear what you're saying, and yeah, I think it's just a kind of a difficult issue because now I wouldn't ever tell her to go slow. Now I'm telling her like, hey, when are you gonna set up this next thing that you want to do and this next thing, you know? So
That just shows how far you've both come, and we'll definitely get to more of that here later. How did you deal with some of that, the actual specific religious things that people would say or quote, or that you had in your own head?
well, and we still have people that we talk to that still will tell us, Bible verses and stuff. With Deuteronomy, with that verse, I believe that's a verse that talks about basically not cross dressing, like men shouldn't wear dresses. And
Mm,
at that point, how we refuted that was the verses surrounding that verse talk about building a fence on your roof so that if somebody goes on your roof, they're not going to fall off, they're going to like be guarded by the fence, and not wearing clothes with mixed fabric. Like it was very specific rules that were set down at that time. And I'm not necessarily saying like those rules are right. But they're not rules that apply today. Like we wear poly cotton. We're not building fences on our roof. Like there's a lot in that is indicative more of the time, I
mhm.
guess is what I would say. And even that, I would like, if I went back to ancient Israel and somebody was trans and wanting to wear dresses, I would say, well, you're not a man wanting to wear dresses. You're a woman wanting to wear dresses. Like that's your gender identity, you know?
Mm. What were the things, as you've moved through, and as you had the initial conversations, that Victoria said or did that were really helpful? And what changes to her approach may have helped you more in those initial conversations?
Victoria just really reassured me that she was still the person I fell in love with, that she still had the same humor, which she still does, and that she still had the same like love and sensitivity, and we still had the same connection. And it was just like, I'm still me, and I'm just more of a happier me.
Uh-huh.
And when I started seeing that she really was still her, she was just a happier her, it really helped because it's like, well, this person I love is now just happy, and they're like being who they are, and they're not like, I don't know, like I said, you kind of imagine when your spouse comes out that they're going to turn out to be a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe with some people they would, because maybe they had been burying so much of who they were. And there definitely is stuff about Victoria that's changed. Like she used to hate the beach and now she likes the beach. She used to you know, like she used to be so much more guarded with certain things that now she's not so guarded with, but the core of like who she is the same.
Hmm.
And that really helped.
Yeah, one of the things that I feel like she's pretty notorious for in our community here is being very bold and kind of F the world, like this is me, and you know, just fully accepts herself and goes forward with what is right for her. How did that affect things? Did that help? Did that um was that too bold for you?
No, I loved it. I really love how because I also care about what people think of me and want everyone to like me and don't want to be like stared at weird. But it just gave me this extra sense of like when we were out, even when she was cross dressing, it was like, you know, people would stare her down and I'd look at them like, what are you staring at? Like, what are you looking at? You know, and her having that confidence helped give me some confidence, and it helped remind me that it doesn't matter what people think, and that would help kind of bolster confidence. And this is like just who we are, and you either take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
So because of Victoria's confidence, I've had a lot more confidence in like who we are as a couple that I don't think I would have as much of if she didn't have such a like a bold stance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah.
if she because like, you know, if you can be at the time when she was presenting as male wearing dresses with like a beard and everything, like if you can do that, then who am I like to not be able to like do that? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah. So you've kind of talked about some of these things. I just wondered if there's anything else that we should dive deeper into about what some of your biggest fears when you started having these conversations and the thoughts of that, you know, that end game where she was going to be transitioning. You mentioned who she was changing. Were there any other big fears that were persistent for you?
I have my biggest fear has always and still a little bit is her voice changing. And that's just
Interesting.
because, I mean, sound for people is like a big thing, voice for people is a big thing, but also me and Victoria, we met in person, but we dated long distance for 6 months and we talked on the phone for like 8 hours a day every day.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I was so used to her voice, which currently it's still basically the same as it is now, but I know she wants to, um, you know, change it and like feminize it in that sense more, you
Uh-huh.
know, like more generically feminize it. And it's still just a little bit scary, but again, it's something like if me and her are sitting together and I'm asking her to talk like that to kind of help her practice and everything, it's something I'm starting to get used to.
Oh,
So,
that's very true.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
it would be one of those things that's gradual enough that you might not even notice it, you know, very overtly.
yeah. The biggest thing overnight change was her breast augmentation because you
Uh-huh.
go from, you know, not having like honkers to really having like big ones. And that, you know, change is always difficult, and it was somewhat difficult, but I also like think her breasts are really beautiful and I really like them, and without getting too much into graphic sexual detail.
Yeah. How did it affect your sexuality or your perception of your own sexuality?
Oh, that's been pretty difficult because I I just ever since I was young, I had like I've never considered myself bisexual. I've always been attracted to and dated and liked men. But at the same time, when I was younger, I would get sexual attractions for females, but I would never, I honestly didn't have the desire to have sex with a woman, like another woman, or to date another woman. But I would see like, you know, sexy images or stuff on TV, and it was like, oh, that's really like, I like that. But I would freak out when I was a kid because it was like, that's wrong, that's sinful, don't do that.
Well, it's just
And
so funny
so,
because that's the way our society is. If you look at men's magazines, it's all scantily clad women. If you look
yeah,
at women's magazines, it's all scantily clad women. Like,
yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. But I still found it sexually appealing, but I just never really wanted to have sex with a woman, or never like I'm not saying because of like my religion, I just honestly didn't. And
mhm.
um so when Victoria came out, it was like, okay, now I can explore this. But it's not like there hasn't been, oh gosh, I don't know, like 28 years of conditioning that LGBTQ is wrong in my head, even though I don't believe that anymore. It's not like those thoughts and feelings like don't still pop up. It's kind of
Yeah.
like when someone goes through, purity culture, you're told like, don't have sex before marriage, don't have sex outside, don't. And then you shift and you're like, well, I don't think that's wrong anymore. But it's not like that still doesn't like pop up in your head every once in a while,
Mm-hmm.
you know? I still have to fight. Like like I said, I don't believe it's wrong, but it's like I still have to fight that because there's so much conditioning.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just it's new to you. It's sort of your chance, you hear about so many girls that, like to explore during college or whatever, and like this is sort of your chance, but still it's a big change for you. So it's understandable that even at times now you'll still have like some trepidations, especially as some of those changes happen quickly, like the breast augmentation or eventually, bottom surgery. Like it's just kind of a light switch with those. I really love what we talked about and what you said in our pre-interview about sex and with a partner who's transitioning. Do you remember what you said there? Do you need some prompting?
That sex is sex,
Yeah.
and that it's just like it's literally just learning how to get the other person off and how to get yourself off, and it's gonna change. Like, and I think honestly that changes even like if somebody doesn't change in transition, that changes in age. Like you learn like what works and what doesn't work, and something used to work and now it doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not so much like, like it's just it's all sex and it's
Yeah.
all like, whatever type it is, it's just learning how to get the other person off. Is
Mm-hmm.
that what you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that also segues back into the relationship really well of, I mean, have you had any kind of perspective? I mean, this is your one marriage, but in talking with other married friends and stuff like that, do you feel that some of the things that you've gone through that have been challenges for you in being with a transgender person really aren't that different than just being in a regular relationship? Like you said, change is a part of being in a relationship with people. We all evolve in our own ways. We grow apart or in different ways. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
sex changes. Have you noticed that in your relationship?
I mean, I'm definitely noticing it now that you brought it up. Like that makes sense. Is that, yeah, like people people have their problems. They have miscommunications. They have, what they think might be like, uh, I don't know, like betrayals or like I don't feel like betrayed, but it's not like when someone first comes out to you that you think like, well, how long is this going on that I haven't been told,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Which that wasn't a thing because Victoria didn't even come out to herself until she came out to me. But I don't know. It's just, yeah, like miscommunications and fights. And our relationship is very honestly, like, I know this sounds like cheese, but our relationship since Victoria came out is very honestly, in a lot of ways, better than before because we were seriously on the verge of fighting every day, talking about getting divorced, talking
Oh.
about separating. She was miserable. She didn't know why she was miserable. I was miserable because I also struggle with codependency, so I was also like taking on her stuff, and I was miserable, and we both have anxiety, and so ever since her coming out and really just kind of being the, like you said, the F the world, embracing who we are and not trying to like fit in this box anymore, we're
Mm.
both much happier, and we definitely have like a better relationship.
Yeah, I mean that's just what you hope for, and I wish so many more spouses would see that's what is coming with a transition is your partner, but better, stronger, happier.
Well, and it's not like I mean, I don't want to fool you. It's not like we overall our relationship's been better, but it's not like there haven't been hard days. It's not like there haven't been days where I've cried or had a hard time or would grieve like the loss of expectations. So I don't want to sugarcoat it and make it seem like it just overall though, we
Mm.
don't really have like the fights anymore that we had before. We don't talk about divorce like we did before. It's just it's much different in that aspect. But
Yeah.
we still have our ups and downs like every other couple.
Oh, so your relationship isn't perfect then. Well, I'm just super disappointed.
Well, I don't want a viewer to see this and think, well, gosh, like my relationship's having a hard day or a hard week, because like like ours definitely has hard days and hard weeks, and especially early in the transition, but we also had a lot of really good days.
Hmm.
And so
Well, yeah, and I think that's another thing that's great about, getting closer and learning more about Victoria and, some of the transgenders and other people that are prominent in the trans community is that we all have those days. We all have our own days of dysphoria and feeling down and things like that. And the same thing with the relationships. Like we're all still human and we all still go through the same crap. So it's not
yeah,
like everything's perfect for anybody.
yeah, no, definitely.
So going back to the specifics of the transition, were there any steps that you'd kind of said, let's take it slow. Were there any steps that you pushed back against?
I mean, like I said, I've definitely pushed back in the past, no longer, but I've definitely pushed back against the idea of her changing her voice.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
I let's see. So I'm not going to say if Victoria has bottom surgery or if she's going to have bottom surgery, because every trans person is different and that's not my thing to bring up. But that's definitely been something I've pushed back against. But that's not to say she was necessarily saying she needs it or wants it. But it's like your mind automatically goes there when you hear that like someone is trans. It's automatically like, oh, they're going to have bottom surgery. That's like the first kind of thing that pops up.
Hmm.
And I remember when she came out, she didn't even have to say anything. And I was like, well, you're not going to like have bottom surgery, right? Like it was like this like scared and
Uh-huh.
like I said, I'm not gonna like share my answer because that's not mine to share and everybody's different and
Yeah.
it's not yeah. So but that's definitely something I push back against because it's
Hmm.
just like it's one of those scary like things.
Hmm.
But again, sex
Yeah.
is sex is
And
sex.
and I'm not asking you these questions, any of these questions at all tonight to put you on the spot or to grill you in any way, or and there's definitely no suggestion of right or wrong. What we're doing in this conversation is to really normalize everything. Your fears are normal, and how you got through them is just a really interesting and unique thing, and it's great to get that out there. So I just want to put that
Yeah.
caveat in
Oh
there.
yeah, no, I wasn't trying to be defensive against you. I'm sorry.
No, no, not at all.
I
Wanted to
just was
address
trying
that.
to clarify that my answer to that question of being afraid of bottom surgery doesn't necessarily give away if bottom surgery has or will happen or
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah. Again, that's a really private thing, but just again, exactly what you were saying about you don't want to portray that your relationship is this perfect thing. It's also important to say that even though your relationship is so great, that you still do have these fears and you do push back at
Hmm.
times. So if for other people watching, if they're transition, if their spouse, there's some tension on some things, totally normal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very normal. I mean, in the very beginning, like the very first day, I was just worried about kind of any transition because every transition seemed big. Every transition seemed like, okay, we need to take that slow, or I don't know how I feel about that, or just every transition because change is scary, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, period. Going out of your immediate situation, how did your friends and family react? And how did you kind of come out? You mentioned coming out to the larger world together. How did that all go?
When we came out via Instagram basically. Like I put like I still have it on my Instagram. It's like our first post of her actually coming out. I went to work, I think that day or the next day. I had so many people at work come up to me and tell me how like strong we are and how awesome like what we're doing is. I had some friends that were like very confused. I've definitely lost some friends through this
Mm,
that were never really, honestly, must have never really been good enough friends to begin with if they're gonna like leave me over this. My family, most of my family has is still very very supportive, but they definitely were confused. They definitely like my mom is extremely supportive, loves Victoria so much, but at first she was like, I don't understand, and I showed her like a documentary, Gender Revolution, like a journey with Katie Couric.
mm-hmm.
Um, and she really started to understand like but she was very like she was still loving but she was also very confused and but then there's been other family members that we just aren't in contact with anymore really
Mm-hmm.
because they're just not respectful and they don't call Victoria Victoria or her name or her pronouns or anything and so we just have distanced ourselves from them obviously.
Yeah.
and aren't in contact with them anymore, which is really a shame and really sad. And it's hard because, like, they're like people that you cared about and stuff. So it really sucks to lose people for such a dumb reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really sucks to lose people, but
Yeah.
we've definitely lost our fair share of people.
How did that affect you? The perspective of friends and family and just sort of the outside community. We've talked about the one side of how Victoria's strength and that kind of message from God kind of helped bolster your feelings internally, but how did the external forces affect how you felt?
Oh, I hated it. I cried so much. I felt very like rejected and very like, I don't understand why these people. I also, at the time, I was like, not like anything is like Victoria's fault, but at the time it was like, why are they banning us? And like, why are they like mad at me? I'm just being like supportive and like, like kind of like what, but like Victoria also didn't do anything. So that was like kind of a weird way of thinking. But that is what I genuinely thought at the time. I've gotten a lot more because we have that whole, like you said, that whole confident kind of F the world. It's not like we don't hurt, but I definitely have more of a, okay, well, you want to leave? Bye. Like,
Uh-huh.
see you later. Like, I can get on without you. And it's been through a lot of tears,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also been like, well, I'm not going to leave Victoria. So you're either going to be my friend or you're not. And
Yeah.
you're either going to, and I've had to stand up to friends who I've had to say, like, hey, like, you're invited to our birthday, but when you come over, like, you need to call Victoria and female pronouns. And then they were like, well, you can't censor me. And I was like, well, then you can't come to my party. And I guess we're not friends anymore. Like, if you can't respect
Mm-hmm.
her name and pronouns, like, I guess you're choosing to leave.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's another thing we try and hit here pretty often is that the people that choose to leave, we tend to always to look at things through the lens of the loss that we have in our life, the friends we lose, all that kind of stuff. But you got to remember what they're losing and how awesome
yeah.
you are and your relationship. So that's
Well,
great.
and we've gained, like, it really has put a line in the sand of like who's your friend and who's not your friend. And I would much rather have a line. I don't want to have like a wishy-washy gray friend. I want to have like a lot, like, are you my friend or are you not my friend? Like, maybe we're acquaintance friends, but like, are you basically on my side or not on my side? And if
Hmm.
you're not on my side, then I'll see you later. Like, bye.
Hmm.
But it's really like we've also like gained, like, you and like Mika and all the transvenders and um Hannah and Mimi, like, we've gained a lot of really wonderful friends.
Hmm. And
And then friendships that we had before have gotten even stronger because they like are in our corner.
nice. So Bailey, what's it been for you to be brought into this trans community? Like, not only to be part of it, but Victoria is kind of a prominent person in it. And through Nostalgia Read and some of the things you're doing, I think you've got a lot of prominence. You get a lot of love from the trans community. What's that been like to be part of this new whole thing that, like, yeah, truthfully, you thought was wrong early on in your life?
I know. I think it's been really wonderful. I know I'm not like, I definitely feel like I fit in, but since I'm not transgender, I try to like be part of the community, but also just like not, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I really like being part of the community. I love doing Nostalgia. We have so much fun doing that. And I really like, I've had a lot of people reach out to me with questions about like they're going through this with their spouse, or they are trans and they want to come out to their spouse. And I feel like I've really helped people a lot, which I really like because I really want to help people
Hmm.
be able to like get through something and get to the other side, whatever that looks like for them. So I really like being part of the community. I'm really proud of Victoria because she really has like built up, like, she's just so confident and she's so like great in the
Hmm.
community, and I'm just really proud of her.
That's awesome.
And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be like, I mean, I would like, still like stuff and still follow people, but I wouldn't be like known. I'm only really like known because of her, which is nice,
Yeah. Yeah, if you're riding the coattails, but that's what you gotta do sometimes.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
great.
riding the coattails. I never thought I came to California to be an actress and I thought people
Oh,
would ride my coattails, but
Uh-huh.
I'm still on the coat, so
Yeah, the code's still involved in your situation, so it's good.
yeah.
So what have you learned about yourself and Victoria through all this?
That we're very strong. That we because like even because it's just like I've said, like I keep saying, change is very hard, and there are a lot of people who, for whatever reason, like wouldn't stay, wouldn't even try, wouldn't, they kind of go to what's comfortable. And me and Victoria are very like we're in it till the end, we're in it for the long haul, and we're really like strong team.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, like I said before she came out, it was like I don't know if we're gonna make it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know if I'm very strong or if she's very strong, if we're just going to go to whatever is like comfortable. But we've really been, I guess the saying would be like refined through fire.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So,
definitely the what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
yeah,
Both of
no,
those
yeah.
work.
And so, very strong. I've also learned that, I mean, even though I was raised very, very conservatively, I've always had like inklings of feeling progressive thoughts, like thinking like, I did ask my mom when I was a kid, like, do you really think LGBTQ people are going to hell? And my mom was like, I don't know, but I mean, that's what the church tells us, but I don't fully know. And I think we should just love people. And so it's not like progressive, like love and acceptance hasn't always been there, but it just
Uh,
was kind of like buried. And now it's like really coming to the surface. And I'm really becoming more of like an activist for LGBT rights and for animals and for all different things. Like I'm kind of standing up on my soapbox and saying no more.
uh. Well, that's
you
wonderful that
know?
you did at least have that from your upbringing. You know that your mom saw the the weird juxtaposition of you should love everybody. Everybody is God's children, and well, except those and these people and those ones. It's like
Mm-hmm.
no, it does say all.
Yeah, no, it definitely says all. And I think my mom and dad, because my mom had, when I was growing up, and she still does, like she had friends that were gay, and she didn't, to my recollection, even though she was taught by the church that it was a sin, she didn't convey that to them. And she kind of was of the mind, well, if it is a sin, then that's their thing. That's not my thing to like tell them or to deal. Like I'm here to love them and to
Mhm.
like be there for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I know she like is different now in that she doesn't think it's wrong or sinful anymore. But even at that point, it was always like well, we're just going to love them anyway. And
Mhm.
that's their thing to deal with. That's like between them and God kind of thing.
Yeah. Is there anything you miss about the way things were before that were particularly hard to grieve or move on from?
The expectations, I always throughout my whole life, I want to have a husband. I want to have a father to my children. I want to be the quote unquote, the woman in the relationship kind of thing, and have the partner be like the protector and the provider, kind of, 1950s
Uh-huh.
thought. But and so that was kind of hard to deal with, is that. And also I've just never been in a relationship with somebody who's a woman, so I've never known what it's like to both be like, because I'm a pretty feminine person as well. I like wearing dresses, not all the time, not as much as Victoria, but I definitely like, dressing pretty and being like, what the society would call feminine. And so it's kind of hard to share that and feel like people are going to, like, now they're going to look at me. I mean, not anymore, but like it was hard to be like, oh, are people going to look at me and think that I'm the more masculine one in the relationship, because I still do like wear athletic clothes and,
Mm,
like don't always dress like super pretty. So that was kind of something that kind of plagued my mind a little bit.
okay. Yeah, and Tori chimes in. My chest hair is the thing that you would miss the most.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that now. It's been so long.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, that's funny that I forgot about it. But yeah, no, I remember being like, oh no, now the chest hair is gonna be gone. Now the chin strap's gonna be gone. And
Did you like your guys hairy in the past? You like kind of twirling your fingers in the chest hair?
not
That kind of
super
no?
hairy, but it just was a very, like, I had gotten so like used to it with Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Like I I was always fine when I like dated other people if they weren't like really hairy or if they, what they call like manscape where they like shave, but I just got so used to it with Victoria. Like for 5 years she had chest hair,
Mm-hmm.
and she had leg hair and she had like I got so used to that
Mm.
that it's just like, oh no, that's going away. And my dad always had like a more hairy chest, so it's like, yeah, I'm like used to like men having hairy chests kind of thing
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
more
I think
so.
that fits back into sort of the expectations, whether it's overt, whether it's conscious or not. It's
Hmm.
very interesting. Yeah, I got extremely lucky somehow. I have no chest hair, and it just
Yay!
yeah, I don't know. I was predisposed, luckily, and I have one back hair. Just share that. No, we're getting to
Just
two,
one.
just the one.
Okay. Okay, come to our house and we'll pluck it for you.
It's a bit of a drive for one pluck, but yeah,
We'll
next
make
time
it worth your while.
yeah, next time I'm down there, I'll definitely swing by for the pluck. Okay. What are the most important things a trans person should remember in coming out to their partner?
You're not alone. There are people all over the world that come out to their partner, and there are partnerships that remain. That was one of the biggest things for me, as I thought I was totally alone. No partner stayed with another partner. Like, how am I going to be able to do it?
Mm-hmm.
But no, you're not alone, and uh, you are doing something like for the person that's trans, like you are doing something that's integral to who you are. And if the spouse, and then for the spouse to, I would say, again, you're not alone. You're not the only person in the world who's had this like revelation, and it honestly, it's your partner being who they are. It doesn't have any indication of like you as a spouse. Not like it's wrong, but it has no indication of who you are as a spouse, that your partner's trans. They're beautiful and they're trans and they're being who they are finally.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to the spouse to take it slow. To If one day you decide I'm going to support my spouse by like, being supportive to them, but I can't stay in the marriage. If you decide that one day, then fine, you decide that one day, but you don't need to decide it like the day that you're told or the week that you're told. Just take it one day at a time. You might find that you have some like repressed sexual desires, or like that, things like, feelings develop, or like you might find that you have a better relationship than you ever thought you would have. So honestly, just to take it slow,
Mm-hmm.
for the spouse. Not I'm not telling the trans person to take it slow on their coming out, but I'm telling the spouse, literally just take it one day at a time. If you decide to leave, you still have that decision, and you're not a bad person if you decide you can't stay in the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to decide that right now. That's like such a big decision, especially if like you're married or if you're living together, or if
Mm-hmm.
you have like a really long partnership. That's such a big decision, and it doesn't need to be made overnight. Go to therapy, see how you feel, really process through things before you make such a big like life altering decision.
Yeah, I think that's super key, and that's again going back to what we talked about before about that you hear transgender and you think all the way to the end, and
Mm-hmm.
worst case. I mean, it sucks to say this. I apologize to everybody, but your brain goes to worst case scenario of what your perspective is. So like that's the
Mm-hmm.
worst thing that could happen, and so you go all the way there instead of thinking the steps, the how gradual it is, how you can grow and change together.
Well, and you also think, am I going to be strong enough to handle this change? Am I going to be strong enough to come out to family? And am I going to be strong enough? But like, you don't have to do all that stuff all at once. You, like I said, you just take it one day at a time, and like you might find that you're a lot stronger than you think you are, and that you're able to really like process through change. And the biggest piece of advice I would give to anyone who's trans or any spouse is to um, go to therapy. It doesn't necessarily have to be couples therapy. It can be individual therapy, because I think it can be really important to really kind of process through your emotions.
I loved another thing that we talked about in the pre-interview that we sort of glossed over there, was how much it helped you to see examples of other successful couples.
Oh, that helped so much. I cried. That helped so much to see other, because like I said, I thought I was alone. I was like, I know people like, you know, spouses come out to their spouse as like gay and then they divorce and stuff, but I've never heard of somebody coming out as trans and they stay. Like that
Mm.
doesn't happen. And I thought I was so alone, and that I was like the only person in the world that ever has gone through this. And then I saw so many examples of spouses who stayed and they made it work and they made it beautiful and they like love each other and they've like blossomed into something new, and that just gave me like a lot of hope for like, okay, like I can do this.
Hmm.
you know
And you said that Tori provided some of those examples, that she showed you some of that stuff too, right?
Yeah, no, that was very helpful because she
Hmm.
knew she knew I was having a hard time feeling alone. And she, we've always had a very open communication relationship, and so I, even if it was hurtful to her, there was definitely times I was like, I'm having such a hard time and I'm sorry and I know it's not your fault, and like I just would like have a hard time, and she was very understanding and loving in so many ways, which I really appreciate. Uh, but she definitely showed me like, see, this couple stayed, and see, this couple stayed, and it really gave me a lot of like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
she definitely
it's
provided
so
that.
interesting to think about how just purely that example, like it doesn't have to parallel yours too much or whatever, just that example that it is possible, it is out there, you're not alone, you won't be a social pariah, you won't be the only one out here on this ledge. It's funny to see how important that really is.
And a really good resource that I found very helpful, and I think would be very helpful to the trans and the supportive spouse community, is there's a Reddit page called My Partner is Trans. It's literally just My Partner is Trans. And then everybody on the page is in a relationship, whether it's a marriage, whether it's like, just a dating relationship, whatever, where their partner is trans, and they're like, they basically, a lot of times, not everybody, but a lot of times it's they were dating and then they were married and their partner came out. But sometimes it's like, oh, I'm, dating trans women and or trans men and non-binary. Yeah.
Hmm. What do you feel are the keys to maintaining a successful relationship through transition for both people involved?
Communication. I just think communication is key in any relationship. I know that sounds so cheesy and cliche, but just really communicating where you're at. And, like I told Victoria when she first came out to me, I was like, have you been lying to me this whole time? Like, just really getting all these like thoughts and fears and putting them out to her.
Uh-huh.
And she was able to answer. And that kind of gives somebody peace, when you're able to really communicate with each other. So communication, understanding, and trying to always put yourself in the other person's shoes. So like for the spouse, trying to put yourself in the shoes of your partner who has, always been trans and is just finally coming out, how scared they are. And for somebody who's trans, like trying to put yourself in the position of being the spouse who's getting this giant like revelation for their relationship. So really trying to be like empathetic and communicative.
Hmm. Deciding when to come out. I mean, you first have to realize that you're trans, and luckily the way it worked with Victoria exploring this, she was coming to grips as you were. You got there at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times it's something that we ruminate on and we research on our own, and we fight against it so much, but we come to it on our own. I almost wonder how important it is to try and have that conversation as early as possible, to try and avoid some of that, like, oh, you've been hiding this from me for X amount of time, um, or if it's more important to kind of wait. I mean, I guess the thing is it depends on your story, depends on what kind of network you have, what kind of friends you have behind you to support you. But
Getting that revelation kind of in small bites, like I'm looking into this, or I'm exploring this, or and I don't quite know what it means, or I might think I might be this, like kind of getting it in small bites can be very helpful
mm,
for the spouse and for the potential of the relationship, and they won't feel so
yeah.
blindsided, I guess would be the word for it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like everyone's story, and I can't tell someone that they're wrong for deciding to like hold it back or.
One way to think about doing it might be to say, to say with your spouse, I've been feeling really kind of bad about myself, and I've been having these feelings and fighting with this thing inside, and I'm kind of doing some research, and it sounds like gender dysphoria.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if
Yeah.
that's an easy way to, like you said, to kind of do it in small bite-sized chunks that aren't just this whole big on the
Yeah.
desk as the camera shakes kind of thing. You just drop this big bomb.
I think it's probably easier for most people. Everybody's different, but I think it's probably easier for most people to kind of be able to ride it with you and try to figure it out with you, or try to prepare them. Because, like I said, I was prepared for like a year that she might come out at any point because she had been cross dressing. And it was, and in my mind, it's like, well, like
Hmm.
if she wants to cross dress, she probably is trans, but like I don't know what that means. And I don't,
Hmm.
so I had definitely been preparing. And then for those 2 months where she was like testing it out, like a name and testing out different things, like that's definitely like preparing. So the revelation was still hard, but it was easier.
Okay.
But that's our story, and
Hmm.
everyone's different.
Yeah. Again, I didn't really want to. I kind of felt like as we were kind of diving into that question and that thought there that you just really can't do too much of that because everybody's story is different. But I also kind of want to pick through in some of these conversations, maybe at least some ideas to try, and some
Hmm.
things to keep in mind when you're deciding when and how to come out to your spouse. I think that's what I
Yeah.
was trying to get at. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing all of the deep stuff about your relationship and just doing what you can to help the community.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed being on and getting to talk about things and help people.